Now, how did you come up with this amazing idea? Because, like you say, RPA, BPA, robotic process automation, business process automation, these concepts or these terms or these ideas have been around for a very long time, but the
Yeah.
promise of them, the
Has
the
been
promise
nothing.
of them, the promise of them has gone a little bit unfulfilled from my perspective, mainly because the main RPA platforms are so complex and so
Yep.
difficult to use that you have to be an engineer to be able to set them up and run them and
Right.
maintain them and look after them. But it sounds
Right.
like you're trying to effectively democratize that robotic process automation so that almost anyone who knows how to use the internet and log in and do things online, almost anyone can use your platform.
Yes. This is the first, and I've talked to so many founders and SaaS founders and investors. No one has really built anything meaningful with RPA, robotic process automation. We backed into this, like with my CTO. We were designing like a form that would do it so they could type step by step, similar to Zapier. And then he showed me something that he had built for what was essentially QA automation. If you're not familiar with that, QA automation is a way that engineers test things on the front end without having to do it manually. And when he showed me this tool that he had built, and I was like, is there any way we could just allow our customers to do this? Can we repurpose this thing you built in order to just do this? Because this seems really easy. This is the easiest thing. They're already making videos. We have to remake these things. And he goes, let me see. Skip to months and months later of tailoring this tool. We just like finding this solution. Oh, some people use these for very engineering things, but none have been where an engineer can go make their own custom code and run their own things, but nothing really consumer facing if you're non-technical. It took a non-technical mind and an engineering brain like my CTO to actually address the issue and give it to more people that were just like me and people who we were building for. So it was just a mistake that we even found this. And now we're just going full steam ahead. So I think this is the coolest like application that you could possibly use with RP.
Some of these examples that you've given that might be really relevant to my audience in particular are things that, for example, a e-commerce store owner or webmaster or someone who's in charge of e-commerce, maybe they're an e-commerce manager or they're a marketing manager, and they're doing a lot of repetitious tasks, repetitive tasks. I don't even know if repetitious is a word. I know
It
repetitive
should
is,
be,
but
should be.
repetitive. They're doing repetitive tasks, and they're doing something like, for example, automating a failed. Let's say there's a failed charge, right? And they
Yep.
want to set up an abandoned cart workflow. Now, of course, they could do that in something like Klaviyo, but maybe you want to do something custom off the back side of that, right? And ask
Yep.
someone to update their card details or something like that. You'd be able to do that with TaskMagic. Or if you wanted to do a custom abandoned cart follow up outside of that and you want to trigger off something custom in Klaviyo, or if you wanted to set up automatic reordering of products with a supplier based on a certain inventory level inside your Shopify or BigCommerce store, for example. There's all sorts of things. Or you wanted to automatically generate invoices and send those out. If there was a task, and I'm thinking specifically here, I'll give you an example, and you can
Yep.
tell me whether TaskMagic would be able to do this for me. So Squarespace, which is what I use for hosting my website for my consulting services, Squarespace, oddly enough, even though they've got an e-commerce module, and even though it can automate the process of managing subscriptions, i.e., your customers can buy a subscription through the front end, what they don't get is when they order something, they get an order confirmation email, but they do not get an invoice. Now, I can generate
Mm.
manually as an administrator, I can manually generate an invoice out of the back end as a PDF, and then I can email that to the customer as an attachment, but the customer
Yep.
themselves can't do it for some reason. So only I, as the administrator, could do that. So using TaskMagic, when a new order comes into Squarespace, I could effectively set TaskMagic up to go into the backend, download the PDF, and email that to the end customer for their records. I could automate that entire process using TaskMagic.
Correct. You would you would make a recording, we call it, of you generating that invoice. You know how you can generate an invoice right in Stripe and then mail it to that person? You could do that. So like you would make the trigger a new order. Then once a new order hit on your Google Sheet or your whatever it would be in your database, you would go amazing, or Stripe, whatever. Stripe would hit Google Sheet, then come in. It would play that record. It would bring in the variable from that person that just ordered, and then create that thing you just did, that recording you just made, as in making the manual invoice that you don't have to do anymore. You're putting the variable in there for the email and then sending it to them. So it's literally, there are
Wow.
no boundaries to what you can. If you can do it in the web, if you can manually do it in the web, this can automate it. There's zero limit, or limits that I know, not limits that I know of. So, and we're testing it with more things like this now, but anything you can run in the web, any process, like you just very eloquently made a solution I barely knew existed. So, like, the answer is cool. Here's what I have to do in Stripe. I have to generate this invoice every time someone comes in, gets sent, because I don't know how to do that, or I don't know how to automate it or whatever. You have to do it, and it's manual and it's repetitive. You can then automate it using this just by doing this thing, that manual thing one time, and then just hitting on every time this wants to trigger. Yes, 100%.
And I would normally use Gmail because I use Gmail, I use G Suite. I would use Gmail to send that email with the correct attachment. And because you integrate with Gmail, you'd be able
Yep.
to authenticate. If I wasn't already authenticated at the time
Yep.
that endpoint ran, you would authenticate into my Gmail account using my credentials so that you could use my Gmail account to send the email with the appropriate attachment at the appropriate time.
Correct. And because as you're going through it, as you're going through this thing, you're securely entering, like you're securely logging into this thing like you would on the web. Right. So, and then you can see that like it's encrypted. So you can't see the password, just like anything else, just like anything else. And it's simply running through that same thing that you're doing. Like you said, it's like using that like robotic process automation. Like it is that one thing, and it's doing it in an easy way that no one's really done it up to this point.
I'm going to give you another example, and I'm going to ask you if TaskMagic could do this thing. I don't know if you heard of the Make platform, similar to Zapier, but probably a little bit
Yes.
more
Yeah.
full feature. Make is an
Yep.
iPaaS platform. It's integration platform as a service.
Yep.
And I had a Make coder, a Make partner who automates using Make. I had him create an automation between Squarespace and Zero, even though Make has an out of the box quote unquote recipe that connects Squarespace commerce to Zero. It didn't do all the things I wanted it to do. So I needed customizations done to that quote unquote recipe so that when an order came in from Squarespace, it automatically created the sales order in Zero. If the customer didn't exist in Zero, it would automatically create them in Zero. And if they were a customer outside of New Zealand, then they needed to do something a different way. If they were a New Zealand-based customer, then they would create the customer in a different way with different rules. And then it would automatically do that so that when the payment came back down into Zero from Stripe and reconciled via the bank account, I could effectively have the orders automatically show up in Zero to reconcile directly with the payments that came through Stripe. And so there was some custom coding and some custom work required to tweak that recipe to make that all happen the way that I wanted it to happen.
Yep.
And it sounds like as long as I can authenticate into Squarespace via the Squarespace front end, and as long as I can authenticate in Zero via the Zero front end, as long as I can record what I've done and I can do it manually, and I can set up some rules in your system, then I could have created that automation without a developer.
Correct. All end to end. That's the great part about this is if you can log into it's not changing the behavior of what you're doing. Make.com, which used to be what, Integromat, wasn't it?
That's right.
Yeah. So using Zapier or Integromat or what is now Make.com, you have to learn what they're doing and how they're doing it. Most they have limitations because it's them essentially like plugging into the API, and maybe it doesn't do specifically exactly what you want it to do. You want it to do something different, or just right. I don't know. What does that mean? I don't know when that's triggering, or what happens if it errors out, or I don't know. It's like there's a learning curve to it, and every time it errors, there's also a learning curve to fix that error. So what we're doing is saying, cool, do the thing you regularly do. Again, if you can do it on the web, just do that thing. Just do that thing. Oh, cool. Hit record, log into your Squarespace. Cool. Go into your Squarespace. Where's the order? Download that thing. Or make sure that everything you're downloading in the CSV or whatever that you want to reconcile is boom in say just a Google Sheet. Cool. Go to that Google Sheet, take that thing in that cell and then reconcile it and then go log into Xero. Reconcile that thing with the Xero, delete that, add the attachment here or whatever it is, and then hit done recording. And if you hit done, you can schedule it. You can schedule it to loop through certain amount of things. You can schedule or delay certain things in between each step. But everything that you do, and I'll send you a video of how this works. And everything that you do in that recording immediately, and maybe a few seconds, you will see every step that you took. So it's like it pre-writes what you're inputting and trying to figure out in a Zapier you will hit record, do the things, and then it will show you the 31 steps you just did. You clicked here, you deleted that, you edited this. This was your password or your OAuth or your whatever it was. This is where you reconciled this. And then you can go to that step and edit it when something changes, or you can simply just re-record the automation in 90 seconds.